NFL free agency has essentially concluded, and a lot of huge moves have occurred that have just impacted the league in a variety of ways. Much more changes happened than I predicted, and I really didn't have the greatest of predictions looking back on it, but whatever. This offseason was insane. Now today I'm going to be reviewing every single NFL team's offseason thus far. So every notable signing, cut, and trade will be discussed in some form throughout this video. Now to clarify, I am going to be considering what each team had to work with going into the offseason. So let's say a team that didn't have much cap space didn't sign a top tier free agent. I'm not going to knock them for it because they physically could not do it without getting rid of key pieces. So before I get to each team, I'm quickly going to elaborate on my grading scale. The A range means I essentially loved everything that the team did. The B range means I liked mostly everything, though there might be some duds in there, but overall I liked it. The C range, it means that it was fine, not good, not bad, just pretty meh. It should be like no-brainer moves that are in there also. This is an average grade. It's not bad, it's not good. It just means they were okay. The D range means I disliked everything, and there might be some good in there, but overall it was not a good sign from me. And getting an F means that I just hated everything. That's pretty explainable. Hopefully that clears up any confusion you may have with the grades that I give out. I'm not the type to just hand out A pluses and Fs like crazy. I'm going to critique everything in some way. So I hope you understand what I'm getting at, but with all that being said, let's just get right into these grades because this is going to be a long video. So sit back, relax, get some popcorn, get a snack, whatever works for you. Just enjoy what I have to say. The Bears. Oh my God, the Bears. Fire Ryan Pace already. This man just had a god-awful offseason. This is just bad. You traded for Nick Foles for a 4th-round pick, and you did restructure his deal, which I will give you that. But you traded a 4th for him. Cam Newton is currently sitting on the side of the road looking for a job for free. You didn't have to trade that mid-round pick for him. Now, I get it. Nick Foles, he's familiar with the offense. He did the best in Philadelphia with this kind of offense, but you still gave up draft capital for him. You also got Jameis out there. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are available, and you trade for Nick Foles? I get the upside for the potential, but there's arguably a better quarterback. Actually, Cam Newton is a better quarterback than Nick Foles. And he's out there. You can probably get him cheaper than Nick Foles. And Jameis is out there. Now, I get he's not the safest. His potential is there. So, I did not like the Nick Foles trade for them. And something that's even worse is the Jimmy Graham signing. You're paying $8 million per year for Jimmy Graham. Or was it $9? Either way, it sucks. I thought Jimmy Graham was getting a max of $4 million. He was not good for the Packers last year. He was slow on all of his routes. He was dropping open field passes from Aaron Rodgers. The Bears tight end room has the most bodies in it. They're paying the most money in the league to the tight end position, and they still need a tight end. That's just how bad that is right now. Trey Burton and Jimmy Graham, you're paying both of them over like $16 million a year, and they both aren't good. Like, what are you doing? They signed Robert Quinn, which I think makes sense. Signing Quinn is a good idea. Khalil Mack needed a guy across from him to get to the quarterback because Leonard Floyd just could not do that. But they overpaid like hell for Robert Quinn. You gave him a 5-year deal. He's almost 30. He might actually be, I don't remember, but he's old. And you paid him like $15 mil per year average over 5 years. You could probably get out under it in like 2 or 3 years. But still, that's going to tighten up your cap for a while. And then they signed Artie Burns, who just sucks. I mean, whatever. And they signed Jermaine Ifedi. He sucks. I mean, you better hope he's not starting on your interior because your interior of your line isn't that great. Let's talk about all the people that the Bears lost. They lost Nick Kwiatkowski. Makes sense that they lost him. He played very well for them when Danny Trevathan got hurt last year. So he got paid very well by the Raiders, a fair amount. So I don't blame them for letting him walk because they did give Danny Trevathan a contract extension, which I really liked the contract extension, by the way. Trevathan was playing really well, actually exceptional for the Bears last year. Cutting Leonard Floyd makes sense to me. He just couldn't do anything other than stop the run, really. Kyle Long retired. I'm not holding that against them. That just kind of sucks. Your interior offensive line is kind of whack. They lost Nick Williams, who is a very underrated player. And he goes to your division rival, which on actually a good deal. I would have paid him that, but you decided to pay Jimmy Graham $8 million, but whatever. You cut Taylor Gabriel. Makes sense to me. You cut Prince Amukamara. That also makes sense to me. Although you could bring him back now for a cheaper deal because your corner depth is kind of iffy right now. You also lost Clinton Dix, who played decent for you last year. I think he's a very low-end starter. I don't think you want him starting, but someone who's sitting out there, Eric Reed, would be perfect next to Eddie Jackson. That safety tandem would be fantastic. I hope that the Bears could pick him up because that'd be very, very good for them. But I don't know. They haven't bothered to pick him up yet. Maybe it's for other reasons that you may know about Eric Reed, but I'm just going to say that. So overall, I didn't like what the Bears did. I'm giving him a D. Yeah, they got better, quote unquote. But man, it's at what cost? At what cost? Detroit. Okay. This one is interesting. So they start off by paying Vaitai, I'm not going to say that first name, a boatload of money, like he's a starter, which he's not. He is a backup offensive lineman. That is what he is, but they paid him 5 years, $50 million, which is a terrible contract, and I feel like they're going to regret it very soon. And then they ended up just picking up a lot of New England-type players. They picked up Jamie Collins, Danny Shelton. Sure, they fit your system, and they're replacing, like, Snacks Harrison, Ashawn Robinson, which you cut. So, it's kind of just lateral moves, I guess, because they fit the system better. Getting Nick Williams is a very good deal. I like that a lot. Reggie Ragland is a solid pickup. Geronimo Allison is not good, so, whatever. He's going to be your wide receiver 4 or 5. And then bringing in Desmond Trufant to replace Darius Slay that's something all right. I still think you go Jeff Okudah. That's a no-brainer for me. If Chase Young is there at 3 for some reason, you take him. But Jeff Okudah should be the move for you guys. And trading Slay, man. How they've handled the Darius Slay situation is laughable. And you got a 3rd and a 5th for him, which is fine. You weren't going to pay him. I don't know. Just how they handled all that is just terrible. They also cut Kennard. They cut Wagner. And they let Glasgow go. Kennard gone is whatever, I guess. He was making money, so that makes sense if you're going to slot Reggie Ragland back there. So whatever. Ragland, I think, fits better into that Patricia scheme. Now, they cut Wagner, who's a better tackle than Vaitai, and they paid Vaitai what they were paying Rick Wagner. Actually, I think it was more than what they were paying Rick Wagner, and Rick Wagner ended up signing for half that price. So, I don't know, man. It's the Lions have just been a weird offseason. Like, I think a lot of this was just lateral moves, and some of them were a little bit of overpays. But they're getting more guys to fit into that Patricia scheme that know the coaching style, because that was a big problem that they had last year. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's just kind of I'm going to give him a C. Just a straight C, maybe a C-, but yeah, that's about it. On to the Packers, who they lost to the Niners in the NFC Championship game. They didn't really do much, and I didn't expect them to. They didn't have a lot of money to spend. So they lost Brian Bulaga, who was their anchor right tackle for many years, but he had a lot of injury problems late in his career. But it kind of sucks that they let him go because he got a very, very affordable contract from the Chargers, which I'll get to later. So that kind of sucks. They let Blake Martinez walk, which I don't blame them for at all. I think Blake Martinez is a very overrated player, and he got paid like he's underrated. Per se, he got overpaid like crazy. I don't blame them for letting him go. They upgraded at linebacker, and they let Kyler Fackrell go, which is fine. They have the Smiths and Rashawn Gary there, so whatever. They cut Jimmy Graham. Total sense to me. He was getting paid way too much, and he sucked for them. And they let Allison go, or they need to reshape that receiver room. So total sense to me. And to replace Bulaga and Martinez, they got Kirksey and Wagner, which I kind of already touched on earlier. Kirksey is familiar with the Mike Pettin defense, and that was his best years in Cleveland. They got him at a very good value contract. It's just the injury problems that get to me. So that's about it. And Wagner is a very solid bridge tackle. They also re-signed Mercedes Lewis and Alan Lazard. Makes total sense to me. Mercedes Lewis is a great run blocker. He was huge for Aaron Jones, and Alan Lazard was their wide receiver too, believe it or not. And they also brought in Devin Funchess for like a 1-year, $2 million deal. He was supposed to be a vital part in the Colts offense last year, but he got hurt. So this deal is kind of a win-win for both sides. But the Packers definitely, all of their moves in free agency doesn't change their needs in the draft. They're more so band-aids for what are going to be addressed in the draft. So it makes them more flexible. So I think this offseason was just average. It's a C. Considering what they had to work with and what they ended up getting, it was fine. Makes them flexible in the draft. They'll still be a good team next year. I still think they're going to be the best in the NFC North currently, depending on how draft season goes and following up on trades. Okay, Minnesota. Okay, so let's just start with who they're retaining, because that's very notable. They extended Kirk to free up cap, which makes total sense. I expected them to do that. And freeing up that cap space allowed them to franchise tag Anthony Harris. And Anthony Harris is a stud. Makes total sense to me. Now, if you're going to trade him, it sounded like they were going to trade him, but it's now seeming like they won't. But you need the money to extend him. Tagging him makes sense, but man, the rest of your secondary is nothing right now. You have Mike Hughes. That's about it. Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes, and Mac Alexander are all gone. You got to get some corner. You got to at least get 2 corners in this draft because you didn't sign anyone. And let's also talk about their defensive line. They lost Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin, and Stephen Weatherly. And those are all very big people to lose. And it sounded like they were going to bring back Everson Griffin, but that fell through. And Stephen Weatherly is a very underrated player that I thought since they lost Griffin, they were bound to bring back. But I guess since they expected Griffin to come back, that they lost out on Weatherly. So they need another guy across from Hunter, and this edge class isn't that great. So I don't really know what they're going to do there. They also cut Josh Klein, which a lot of Vikings fans I saw were confused about, because Josh Klein is good, and that offensive line isn't amazing, to say the least. You end up signing, I didn't even bring up the Stephon Diggs trade. I like the Diggs trade. From a standpoint of value, you got a very good return on him. I just think your roster is a lot worse than it was last year, as it stands. Like, look at how many people they lost. You have, no one other than Adam Thielen at the receiver position. Now, I know you signed Tajay Sharp, but, he's not going to be your wide receiver 2. At least I hope you don't think he's going to be. So it's sounding like they're going to try and get a wide receiver in the first round with one of their 2 picks. So the trade was good for them. I'm not saying it wasn't. It was incredible value compared to the DeAndre Hopkins trade. It looks like they got a king's ransom for Stephon Diggs compared to that. It's just the Vikings, I don't think, are nearly as good as they were. They need to kill this draft. And don't even get me started on the Michael Pierce signing. The Michael Pierce signing is a huge overpay. It's a massive overpay. I think I saw something that he didn't even play. I think it was 40% of snaps for the Ravens last year. He's a run-stuffing nose tackle. And that's pretty much what he is. And you paid him $9 million per. You could easily get someone in the mid rounds with one of those picks you got. Instead of paying Michael Pierce, you could have brought back Everson Griffin. I'm not as big on this Vikings offseason. Every other team, I mean, every team in the NFC North had it either or bad offseason. I think the Vikings had the best offseason of the four, if that makes sense. But I think they got worse. If that makes sense, but they had the best. They got really good value for Diggs, and they managed to retain Harris by making a ton of cap moves because their cap was, they were over the cap coming into the offseason, and they managed to get under it enough to franchise tag Anthony Harris. For the Vikings, I'm just going to give them like a C+ to a B-. They have a lot of holes. They got to fix up the defensive line. They got to fix up the edge group. They got to fix up corner. They got to fix up wide receiver. And they got to reinforce that offensive line. It's a good thing they have 1 million draft picks because, like they usually do, but man, they have a lot to fill. And they have to kill this draft. And they're a good drafting team, so they probably will, but it's not looking inspiring right now. The Baltimore Ravens. Man, you want to talk about killing an offseason? Let's talk about the Ravens. Eric DeCosta. Oh my God, he's done a fantastic job. Getting Calais Campbell for a 5th round pick is ridiculous. And also getting Derek Wolfe on like a 1-year, $6 million deal. They have just completely revitalized this defensive line, which is something they needed to work on coming into this offseason. And man, this Ravens roster is great. They also got the 2nd round pick for Hayden Hurst, which I think is great value for them, even though the pick at the time I wasn't a big fan of, so they wasted a first. But if you're thinking about it, they got Lamar Jackson at 32, so I wouldn't be complaining. Now, some things that kind of suck for them. Marshall Yanda retired, which they couldn't control, so I'm not going to knock them for that. They lost Hayden Hurst, obviously, so I like that trade. They lost Seth Roberts, which not a big deal. He wasn't that special anyways. They lost Michael Pierce to the Vikings. Now, I like Michael Pierce, but the thing is, the Vikings overpaid him like crazy. So I don't blame the Ravens for letting him walk. You can find a run stuffer in the mid to late rounds in the draft, and the Ravens are some of the best in the business at draft and develop. Honestly, they arguably are the best at draft and develop. So I don't blame them for letting Pierce walk, especially if it comes at the cost of getting Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe. They had a deal in place for Michael Brockers, which I thought was a bit of an overpay. That deal falling through, and they ended up getting Derek Wolfe, which honestly I think is equal talent. All power to him. It honestly just improved my grade for them in every way. Then they lost Patrick Onwuasor. I'm sorry if I butchered that name, but yeah, this was a no-brainer. Their linebacker group isn't that great. They're probably going to try and get someone like Kenneth Murray or Patrick Queen in the 1st round, which I would love for them. They love Oklahoma guys. Kenneth Murray, honestly, I think is on their radar, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was a Baltimore Raven. And they retained Matthew Judon with the franchise tag, which makes total sense to me. He was very good last year, and they also brought back Jimmy Smith to keep that cornerback room very good. So, honestly, I loved everything the Ravens did. They are killing it. Sucks that their season last year just kind of fell short. Hopefully next year they can be good. So I'm giving the Ravens an A+. I loved everything that they did. Now on to their division rival, Cleveland Browns. And the Browns have done a very nice job this offseason. Getting Jack Conklin for the contract that they got him was a steal. He fits very well into Stefanski's offense, and I just like the pickup. I'm surprised that the Jets or the Dolphins didn't try and get in on that contract because they both had money to spend, and New York didn't spend it that well. Man, this pickup for the Browns is super good. Now, they did overpay Austin Hooper a bit, but Stefanski runs a ton of 2 tight end sets. So David Njoku and Austin Hooper as your 2 tight ends, great setup. I like that. Your offense has so much talent in it. Just take one of those top tackles at number 10, and your offense is set. Nick Chubb is going to rush, probably going to be the league leader in rushing yards next year again. I mean, he barely missed out last year because of Derrick Henry, but I'm pretty confident in saying he's going to lead the league next year, unless Kareem Hunt's role is a lot bigger. But I think this offense is set up to do good things. Actually, great things. I actually like the outlook for this year. I wasn't big on their outlook last year. I thought they were a fringe playoff team, and Kitchens obviously just tanked them into the ground. I think Stefanski has a lot more potential, and these moves that they're making, I like them. Case Keenum as a backup, good pickup. I like it. Now, they also got some other value signings. They got BJ Goodson, who's all right. He's just a run-stuffing linebacker. They got him for cheap. Kevin Johnson, corner depth, whatever. Andrew Billings is a very nice signing for the value that they got him for. Carl Joseph he's all right. Your safety group isn't the best. And they also got Andy Janovich from the Broncos for a 7th-round pick. Makes total sense to me. The Stefanski offense uses the fullback like crazy, and the Broncos don't need a fullback anymore because the Shermer offense doesn't use a fullback, so trade makes sense for both sides. They ended up losing Joe Schobert to the Jaguars, who they overpaid him, so I don't blame him for losing him. They also lost Christian Kirksey to the Packers, and Kirksey was just injury prone like crazy throughout the past 2 years. Even though he was good for them, they lost Demarius Randall. Demarius Randall isn't that great, so yeah, let him go. I don't mind that. Greg Robinson got caught at the border with like 200 pounds of weed, so he's gone. They retained Kareem Hunt, which was a no-brainer. So overall, I really like the Cleveland Browns offseason. I think your linebacker position is kind of a big hole, but you could probably get someone in the middle rounds or day 2. I could fill that nicely next to Mac Wilson. So overall, I'm giving the Browns an A-. I liked most of what they did. Actually, loved most of what they did. So, good job. Don't trade Odell. Don't do it. This offense has a lot of potential. And if they manage to mess up again, I don't know what to tell you, because they have so much potential. They have one of the most talented offenses on paper in the NFL. Probably the most talented. It's just all on Baker and Stefanski. That's about it. The Bengals. Why is no one talking about the Bengals offseason? I really like what they did. They got DJ Reader, who's a monster, and I cannot believe the Texans let him walk. And he is going to be a stud next to Geno Atkins, and I love that pickup for them. They also overpaid like crazy for Trey Waynes, but Trey Waynes is a pretty solid corner. And you're Cincinnati, so you kind of have to overpay these guys because no one really wants to play in Cincinnati. You have the number 1 overall pick right now. They also picked up Mac Alexander from the Vikings, his teammate, and they got him on a decent contract, so I don't mind that pickup. Von Bell is a very, very nice grab. Him alongside Jesse Bates is actually a really nice safety tandem. This defense is kind of taking shape. I don't think it's inherently good right now. Man, I like what they've added so far, and assuming they're going to take Joe Burrow, I think this Bengals team has some pretty good potential. Now, that's saying Zach Taylor's offense is going to work. You still have to work on that offensive line, but they lost Tyler Eifert. Not a big deal. He was super injury prone, and I don't blame them for letting him walk. And they also franchise tagged AJ Green, and hopefully AJ Green is going to be healthy next year, because I really want to see that offense with Joe Burrow. And AJ Green is a great wide receiver. He hasn't been talked about much lately because of his injuries, but I like what Cincy's done. And no one's really talking about them. I'm giving him a B+. You know, they've added really good players. Von Bell and DJ Reader specifically. I loved those pickups. And I just think this team has been doing well so far. Now, hopefully in this draft, they take Joe Burrow. They don't trade down. In no circumstance should you trade down from Burrow. Burrow is the best prospect since Andrew Luck. And that's without saying. So just don't mess up this draft. You are set up to have a good draft. Just take Joe Burrow. Possibly take one of those tackles at the top of the second round. Maybe get one of those linebackers if Patrick Queen or Kenneth Murray falls. The Bengals they've done decent. The Steelers, this one's going to be pretty fast. They lost Hargrave. Foster retired, which kind of sucks. They let go of Burns and Barron, which makes sense. They weren't that good. They franchise tagged Bud Dupree, which obvious. He was very good for them last year. It was only 1 year. So you tag him just to see if you can do it a second time in a row. Then you pay him long term. Totally get it. They signed Eric Ebron. It was like 1 year, 6 to 6, 7, 8, something like that. They need playmakers, and they had no tight end. So getting Ebron for Ben Roethlisberger, I like that pickup. Getting Derek Watt just to give him TJ, it's pretty cool. Steelers had a pretty average offseason because they had no cap, so giving it a C. Nothing really else to say there. Thank you for watching this part of a 4-part series where I'm going to be grading every NFL team's offseason moves thus far. If you haven't already, please like the video down below and subscribe to All Sports Culture on YouTube. We have a lot of things coming in store, including the next mock draft, which is going to include trades, so hopefully you guys stick around to see that. Check out the other parts of this series if you haven't already. Make sure you also follow All Sports Culture on Instagram and all of our other socials at All Sport Culture. My name's been Sam from All Sports Culture, and I'll see you all in the next one.